I don't know what to do about this. Okay. Perfectly silent for more than 10 minutes while I figure this out. I start to record, and then all of a sudden, cars, people walking, airplanes, noisiness. Wow. Huge expanding stories. You know, I've written the Golden Threads trilogy, and I made some pretty normal mistakes in the process of writing those stories. I felt I did the expansive world. I have many things going on. I like complex societies. I like complex worlds where things are happening even if the characters aren't there to witness it, or even if the words aren't there to describe it. So one of the things I did was I introduced a lot of side elements into the story which did not directly impact focus of the story. There's a lot of editors, and there's a lot of authors, and a lot of critics who insist that it is vital that you focus on the story. If the ink is on the page, the ink has to have value for the story. I don't know if I agree with that entirely. I mean, I understand the concept of well, don't bore us with all the extra details. Do we go here or there? What's the story like? What are the words for? Is the character earning their place? Now, I agree that villains need to earn their villainy. Heroes need to earn their heroics. When you have comeuppance, the comeuppance has to be appropriate to the level of villainy, right? So that's well understood. But there's this tendency or desire or rhetoric, I'm not quite sure how to describe it, that insists that stories have to be focused. That means that if they put the element into the chapter or into the book, then it has to have something to do with the plot. While I think that's good advice overall, I mean, it's important that the story is cohesive. It's important that the world is cohesive. But I actually enjoy knowing that there is a bigger world. In other words, the world isn't just totally focused on the characters. So that means that the world doesn't exist solely for the purpose of telling this one specific story. That's not reality. That's not the way things are. I mean, I'm sitting here recording this, and there's people walking behind me. There's cars driving by. There's police sirens in the background. The world is happening. There's all this stuff always happening, and that's one of the great things. I mean, like, for example, if you look right behind me right now, there's some people walking back there right this very second. There they go. They're going to walk into the view. Boom, boom, there they are. So this stuff is there. The world is constantly happening. Everything is constantly in motion. Is the fact that those people walked by, did their walking by have anything to do with what I'm talking about? Absolutely. I'm talking about the fact that there's activity going on in the world, right? So, but if I write a story about me sitting in this car and I'm talking about what's happening because this is a detective thriller or this is a fantasy adventure, does that mean that I should dedicate some words to describing the fact that people are moving by regularly? And the modern advice, or most of the advice in this, is no. You should not waste the reader's time talking about the people that are moving around. There's this guy wearing a really really loose tank top carrying a pizza that just walked by. You know, there's a lady that's walking down here. She just came out of the boxing school, and she's jogging over to her car. Does that have anything to do with this topic? No, but it just happened. So what I want to do in my stories, and this is where I get into arguments with my editors, or I should say, my editors continuously recommend that I cut stuff out. I continuously ignore that and keep it in, is that I want to write the stories that demonstrate and describe a believable world. And this is the kind of books I like to read. These are the kind of stories I like to read. Now, doing this in a short story is very, very difficult because, again, in short stories you have word limits sometimes, depending if you're writing for magazines or if you're writing for writing to get into some specific anthology where there's a limit. So you have to be, again, you still have to be careful about how much of these details you put into. And although there are authors that write bricks of books that are 500,000, 300, 400,000 pages long. You know, I'm one of them because, you know, my books are all over 300,000 words each. That's fine. Almost every word in my books are focused on the actual story. They are focused on plot elements that affect the main characters and that affect the ongoing effort. Now, here's two really interesting characters walking around behind me. I think they look like they are out of the local Shaolin temple. We actually have one. They are, yeah, I think they are. That was interesting. So the idea is that I'm trying to be very, very careful about what goes into the story, and that means picking things that are interesting. Oh, a pair of Shaolin monks walked by very slowly, and that can lead to some red herrings or some ways to distract the reader. There's a really great idea around telling a lie, like the best of lie is sandwiched in between two truths. So there's also in storytelling there's you can totally slip in the facts of the murder mystery or the important things by putting them in a list and having the important item be like the third or fourth item, you know, in a list of 5. So that means when an author's like describing a room, if it's a mystery writer, or it's someone who's writing something that has a bit of a mystery element, or a Sherlock Holmes sleuth detective novel type thing, and you want to try and catch the clues early, always don't look at the first 2 items in that list. Always look at the third, fourth element. Like the 2/3 point in the list, because that's where the major clue is going to be. And so I also, knowing this, when I'm writing mystery, or when I'm trying to add a little bit of mysterious element, sometimes I put the major element at the last. I still don't know. I don't think I've ever listed the major plot, the little clue, as the very first element in the list, because that kind of like the first element usually gets the best, the most attention. So I try and move it down at least 1 to the second position. So that's it. I mean, so if you want to write or you want to read, if you're looking at the books and you're considering them, ask yourself, hey, is there a world here, or is there just this microcosm of a story? And I actually use that to gauge how expansive the writer is. I mean, how much other stuff happens off scene or out of scope of the book that comes in and affects the book later, because that tells me how much that author is thinking, or that has thought about the larger world around their characters. So I'm losing my sunlight because the world is moving on, time is going up, and that's it for for today. I thank you very much for watching this, and I'll see you later.